College English listening class. Dr. Shin, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Radast. So I'd like to share my PowerPoints with you. Can you read it from the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I will talk about the dynamic assessment in practice and its use in college English listening class, and share with you my research recently. From the research background, literature review, research design, results, and discussion, and conclusion. Let's first talk about the research background. Assessment is a process of collecting information from various sources in order to identify performance of our student or the effectiveness of our instruction. And traditional static assessment aims at measuring test takers' formed knowledge or abilities, which is opposed by Vygotsky, and he argued that ultimate purpose of assessment and instruction must be devoted to unearthing the underlying reasons of learners' performance and promoting developing abilities. Therefore, the assessment should change the direction to examine learning potential and facilitate further learning instead of only focusing on test takers' currently developed knowledge. Dynamic assessment, DA, has provoked interests from clinical psychologists and educators. That is development-oriented assessment, in contrast to other product-based assessment. The rationale behind DA can be traced back to social cultural theory of mind posted by Vygotsky, especially the notion of mediation and the zone of proximal development, that is ZPD. What is at stake of DA is not theoretical elegance, but issues that affect the lives and destinies of real people. In other words, DA is intended to identify the potential of students so that unfolds a whole picture of their abilities and mediate them to realize those potentials and improve their second language abilities. This is a main shift in language testing, that is, from using assessment as a way to keep students in their place to using assessment as a way to help students find their place in school. So research on L2DA has been developed since 1960s. And recently, one of its research directions falls into the second language classroom, which is an appropriate context for the implementation of DA to figure out how students develop and at the same time to support their development by providing mediation needed. Listening comprehension is the core competence cultivated in EFL education, which is regarded as one of the most difficult skills for learners' language acquisition and communication. It is a dynamic process involving complex procedures and multiple factors. There are a few DA studies to explore how teachers as mediator to implement DA in classroom-based EFL listening context. Thus, more DA research is needed to justify its use. This part, we will first talk about the definition of DA. As Landhoff and Poyner mentioned in their books in 2004, dynamic assessment integrates assessment and instruction into a seamless, unified activity aimed at promoting learner development through appropriate forms of mediation that are sensitive to the individuals, or in some cases, groups' current abilities. In essence, DA is a procedure for simultaneously assessing and promoting development that takes account of the individual's or group's zone of proximal development. So the theoretical basis for DA are social cultural theory, zone of proximal development, and mediation. And DA just anchors its value in the fact individual can be internally developed with the help of external help. And DA has its roots in the Vygotsky's SCT. And in terms of Sternberg and his colleagues in 2002, SCT seems to be the first systematic theory of DA. And DA integrates assessment and teaching, which helps the teacher track the continual process of learning and make decisions about how their following instructions should be arranged according to the results of earlier assessment. The term DA was not named by Vygotsky, but he firstly regards assessment and teaching as a dialectic unity, which it was formalized and proved by in its concept of ZPD. And mediation is one of the basic parts in SCT, which also had a profound impact on DA. SCT regards mediation as the procedure through which humans deploy culturally constructed artifacts, concepts, and activities to regulate. And mediation means what good teachers and parents do when they promote high levels of mental functioning in their children or learners. And mediation thus exerts huge influence on individuals' intellectual development. With this literature review, let's move on to the models of DA. And the models and the approaches of DA are multifarious, which have changed by the way mediation displays. However, there has been one classification for DA model recently, generally accepted by scholars in DA from Lantov and Poyner. They determine two general approaches to DA, namely interventionist and interactionist. Interventionist DA, as a more formal and standardized approach, uses standardized administration procedures and forms of assistance to present easily quantifiable results. The mediator thus cannot provide instruction according to learners' needs, and the mediations implemented in interventionist DA rigidly follow in prearranged, standardized, and fixed sequence. Its standardized procedures provide convenience for a researcher, so it is often used in the large-scale assessment. It is currently used in either of two formats put forward by Sternberg, namely sandwich and cake format. Those are the metaphors for the procedures. The format displays in a pre-test mediation and post-test experimental approach. I will illustrate it in the following figure. So the sandwich or cake format, the interventionist approach just got the linear process from pre-test to intervention to post-test. And in figure 2.2, we just want to share the representation of a cake format. And this is the interventionist. But as to the second approach of DA, that is the interactionist, so we will go back to the interactionist part. It is put forward by Fierstein, who believes that the relationship between the examiner and the examinee in the traditional test must be abandoned and replaced by a new relationship between teachers and the students. Interactional model based on his mediated learning experience mode, which asserts that learning is an interactive process in which educators, learners, and the learning tasks interact with each other continually, and the experienced peer who providing mediation through opting, transforming, enriching, and explaining the items. This can help the learners reach his or her potential or potentialities. And the interactionist DA represents dialogic or cooperative interaction, wherein the mediation is flexible and negotiated in mediator-learner dialogue. Dynamic assessment has brought new trend to language teaching since it challenges conventional views on teaching and assessment by arguing that these should not be seen as separate activities but should instead be fully integrated. So although DA has seen more than 80 years application, its use in the field of EFL education was initiated in 1980s and gradually expanded the application during 1990s. In recent years, there exist innovative trends in its models and methods. In general, both inventional and interactive models are used in foreign languages, classes of English, French, Spanish, Russian, etc., involving language skills such as vocabulary, grammar, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Participants include children, college students, and diversified groups such as those with language impairments and those with outstanding learning ability. Guth et al. Designed the Leipzig Learning Test, LLT, learning test in 1982, which includes language testing. And at the beginning of the 21st century, researchers began to actively try empirical research. And Poyner and Lantoff is committed to the research of L2DA in classroom teaching. The research path follows Vygotsky's ability development view and builds the DA application framework in the L2 teaching environment. The two researchers also compiled the Dynamic Assessment in the Foreign Language Classroom, a Teacher's Guide, which systematically introduced the application methods of dynamic assessment in the classroom teaching. Dynamic assessment, a Vygotskian approach to understanding and promoting L2 development, and is the first L2DA research monograph. The recent studies of L2DA has shown innovations in models and the methods, and progress has been made in the integration of evaluation methods, the expansion of intermediaries, and the application of mixed research methods, as I've shown to you in this diagram. And my research design, the participants in this study are sophomores majoring in non-English languages who just passed the placement test and enrolled in parallel level classes of college English listening. Among them, 33 students in Class A belong to the experimental group, and 34 students in Class B are the control group, and counting 67 in total. And my instruments. So non-dynamic assessment listening tests, and the pre-test and post-test. So it has been used twice. And DA listening tests for the experimental group 7 times, and LSE questionnaires 2 times at the beginning, and finally when we finish, before we finish the research. And the interviews, I don't think it should be 1, because it has been used to the participants, 6 participants, but I just mark here as a method. So only the individual interview has been selected. So if we mention it as the mode, it's only the single mode without the focus group or other mode of interviews. And the reflectional journals, the teachers and the students' reflection journals for 7 times. And data collection. So here, from the pilot study to pre-test to enhancement and post-test, and all those instruments used in this research under the rationale of mixed methods has been collected and recorded. And the results. I didn't share in these slides about those tables or diagrams, the trends of the change of the students. I just use words to present the results here. So the first very important results is the DA procedure contains pre-test, checking, identifying problems, and the mediation and post-test phases, among which the mediation phase mediator can flexibly choose appropriate instructions from mediation list according to responses of learners. Its successful application to college English listening class can be verified by the students' achievements gained during the DA enhancement, their positive reflection and comments concerned with DA listening class. One more thing, the results of quantitative analysis demonstrated a significant improvement in the listening comprehension of the students in experimental class. Specifically, while there is no significant difference of mean score between students in 2 groups at pre-test, the mean score of experiment group students is significantly higher than control group at post-test. Besides, the actual score and the mediated score of experimental students demonstrated an increase gradually during the enhancement phase. And last but not least, according to reflection journal and the interview, students have such positive perceptions of DA that they acknowledge the effectiveness and the practicality of DA in listening class. With the interactive class atmosphere created by DA, students are more active to participate in the listening class and have cultivated a good habit of listening. There are some limitations of this study. The generalization of the research findings may be narrowed with limited participants, so more subjects with majoring various majors should be involved in future studies. Besides, the tasks were not related to other communicative abilities. Therefore, further study should focus on in the various tasks and in the field of the practicality of DA. And those are the list of references and the dust. That's my sharing.
Thank you very much.
Thank
we'll
you.
open the questions now. Sorry, could you turn on your video again?
Yes.
Okay, here you are. Wonderful. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can see you in the connection a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for this presentation. Very interesting about dynamic assessment. Do you think, in your opinion and your research and experience, that it will become more common in the future?
Yeah. The practicality of dynamic assessment, maybe it is not so practical at the beginning for many researchers and classroom instructors. They think that it cannot be used in a large scale or a big class because it just needs the mediators' communication and interaction between the instructors and the learners. But recently, in recent years, there are many facilities for its use in the classroom instruction, like the computer-mediated, computer-based mediation, or some maybe subgroups divided for the higher level students mediators to cooperate with the teachers together to help the maybe lower level students in the class. So with their mediation, the whole class can develop as a whole, and all the students can get cultivated through the whole process.
There is a bit of an echo. I don't know coming from two microphones or we can hear you. There's a bit of an echo.
Okay. Okay. The echoes.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about this. People seem to be talking with passion. Like, what do you think?
So any questions? Any questions?
Yes, what about
the mediation?
Do you think this is language assessment? A field to be.
You mean the mediation process? As to the mediation process, so I think. Okay.
Hi, Chin.
Hi.
Audio is very bad.
You cannot hear me?
It's really bad. We can, but it's like an echo.
So how about this time? No. So how about I re-enter the chat room?
It's still echoing.
So how about I re-enter it?
Maybe mute it.
Yes. I will log out.
Thank you. So I asked her to log out and back in and see if that helps. That's
Okay, yes.
now that she is stopped the
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was something with my computer, but if you could hear that too, and people were texting that, yes, the same for them.
Okay, how about this time? Can you hear me,
Much
Redas?
better, yes. Yes, it's perfect. Yes.
Okay. It may be because my Zoom.
And it could be.
Okay. And how about a second question? You mean the mediation process? So the mediation process can be briefly divided into two types. The first type is interventionist type. So interventionist type, it is more standardized. So it's just a step by step according to some procedures. So as to the interactionist, it can maybe we can divide the whole class into several groups. And with the higher level students mediated together with the teachers, they can join into the different groups of people, and according to their language proficiency, they can offer some scaffolding, where the interaction between the mediator and the learner.
Do you think this type of mediation process can be used on a larger scale by maybe more teachers or institutions?
You see the China in the Chinese condition, usually the EFL class are very big, and the EFL teachers, the number of EFL teachers are not so sufficient for the small class. So usually we will experience we will work together with a big class. And then that's why if we want to make it practical, we have to invite some DA or the higher level students in the same class to offer a hand, to offer the scaffolding to the lower level students.
Which of the four skills do you think is most difficult to assess using dynamic assessment?
Like writing and speaking.
Why?
Because it is writing and speaking. The output skills, it will be more challenging for the mediators, because it need a very proficient and experienced instructors to offer a hand for the non-native learners in their writing and speaking as a native speaker, as a native writer. So it's very challenging.
So would you say that the biggest challenge is training the mediators?
Yes, before we start or initiate the whole process, the teachers or group of teachers, they should work together as a community. If we invite the higher level students as a mediator, we should also invite them to join the community to work together. But this process will benefit the teachers or the mediators meanwhile at the same time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shin, for your talk today and your presentation, even though we had a bit of technical issues. But thank you. And thanks to our audience for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful day and join a few of our other talks. Thank you.
I will, and thanks all. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.